Welcome to the Gearwire.com Crosstalk podcast for Friday, December 15th. I'm your host, Mike Payne, and I'm joined by Drew Craig. Hey, Drew.
What's up?
Britton Weatherald.
Hi.
And Dan Augusto. How is everybody doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Awesome.
Might notice we have a new set. Dan and our very own Kyle Smith behind the camera. Hi, Kyle. Worked pretty hard on this, and we're happy with the way that it looks, and hopefully you will appreciate it just as much. Does anybody know what today is?
Friday?
No, actually, today is the 25th episode of Gearwire Crosstalk, the big 2-5. That means Crosstalk Podcast is now able to legally rent cars without paying extra fees. So
that's older than me.
Yeah. So grab a seat and bring your own beer because Crosstalk is going on a road trip through audio.
That was the worst joke I've heard in all 25 episodes. You just topped your whole all-time bad joke list.
Yes.
That was very bad.
All right, so the first stop on our road trip through audio is Windows Vista. Vista's on its way to a PC near you on January 30th of 2007. We're going to take a look at how this will affect PC-based computer recordists and share some of our own heated opinions. Next, we'll be reviewing some cool plugins by Yugo Audio, which is a boutique VST plug developer. We'll check out Ironhead, which is a wild morphing drum synth, and Tunguska, a morphing multi-effect plugin. And last, if you caught Crosstalk episode 24, you got one heck of a scorcher. Live on the air, the Crosstalk crew produced a new bumper outro for the Gearwire videos. We started with nothing and picked a genre out of a hat. What did we pick? Hair metal. Yes? Woo! Hair metal. I don't know if I've laughed that much during a Crosstalk show, but I surely never had that much fun. This week, we'll be mixing the hair metal bump we recorded in episode 24, live on the air with the help of Blue Cat plugins. Before we get started, we've got to represent Gearwire. Get involved. Shoot us an email at crosstalk@gearwire.com. We've hired a cute blonde secretary to answer your emails, and if you want to perv it up, just send an email our way. Additionally,
you were topping the list more and more. Each and every time, like, he just gets worse and worse. I'm like, man, he can't dig any deeper.
Dude,
a scorcher?
We're going to get some
scorcher.
Yes. We're going to get some spam.
When I said scorcher, I was originally going to talk about
how bad how I sounded like Rick James in heels.
Well, I was gonna tie it to like VD scorcher, but I didn't. See, I could have gotten worse than I did.
I think you just did. Yeah, you just did.
You just dug yourself a grave.
Oh well.
You should be to China already.
Well, should I make this my last episode? Should I just leave and get it over with?
No. You want to perv.
I mean, anybody can read off a screen, you know. But anyway, all right. So if you want to send an email our way, that's the moral of that story. Additionally, check out the Gearwire forums, join the conversation, and share the buzz at forums.gearwire.com. And last, if you haven't already, sign up for the Gearwire newsletter. You can find the link at the top right of any page on gearwire.com. So starting off, Windows Vista is on its way. Motu is ready for the release, having already made Vista drivers available for their full line of audio gear.
Pause for discussion.
Well done.
So yeah,
Vista, huh?
Yeah.
well, yeah. We've had some stories up on Gearwire.com. I feel a lot of negativity towards Vista.
I'll say something. I'm a Mac guy myself, but I use Windows primarily because I'm somewhat poor, and it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And I don't really like it. I've been using Windows since I was a child, and it just seems like the functionality has gone down, in my opinion. But as far as Vista goes, my stance on it is we kind of have to wait for it to be out before we can judge whether or not it's going to work or not. I mean, that's kind of how software or OS systems go and software goes. You kind of have to wait till it's out.
I think one of the big things is that they're pushing Vista so hard. And one of the things Windows has traditionally had over Macintosh is that it's a more affordable operating system, or it allows you to get more affordable hardware. And now we're hearing in Vista, you need like a dual-core Pentium to do music.
At least 2 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, 2 gigs of RAM.
Yeah.
And I personally, actually, I don't have a dual-core Pentium in my home studio. I still have a single core. I'll be updating some point, but and I only have like 1.5 gig of RAM. So I probably would not be, up to spec with that.
Right.
Honestly, it's like a few years ago when they released OS 10 for For Mac, it was like, oh my gosh, you need to do this and this. It was a huge headache because nobody released drivers for it. And it was just a headache for every guy who did recording. I mean, like, I am still actually recording on OS 9 when I'm using Mac for my Pro Tools rig because I just did not want to like convert everything over to OS 10. And it's just because it's a huge pain in the butt. But you know, everybody now who has OS 10, I'm sure if you're using like Pro Tools or Logic or whatnot, you're already in OS 10. It's not even something you think about now. Technology is caught up with new purchasers. For all the older cats, updating is going to be this huge problem. But you know, as far as like, it was bound to happen. First off, Vista at least is releasing its drivers to everybody in enough time to give audio developers, you know.
Yeah, it seems like Windows is doing a pretty good job of getting the source out to developers so that they can do this, and it seems like the developers in turn are responding by creating these drivers. At least Motu, and there's been a lot more, and there's a lot of reports on these things. But yeah, I remember the switch over to OS 10. I was at university at the time, and we had to do these media projects. Pro Tools would only run in OSX, the version we had, but then we also had to do video stuff. And when we wanted to put the sound to a video, we had to boot up in OS 9, like classic or whatever.
Right.
And just almost every time you start exporting, you'd get a crash. And I'm just like hoping to God we don't have to go into any sort of, old version of Windows to run software.
Well, what's beautiful about Vista actually is that Windows has always done one good thing, and they've always been completely backward compatible. All right. Like Vista's operating system. I mean, like Windows.
This is coming from a guy. You've used Mac mostly, though.
I've used Mac and a lot of Windows.
I remember back when I would play computer video games when I was in grade school. Like we would update when we updated from like a 46SX to a 46DX. Some of my video games wouldn't work, and I was crushed.
Well, I mean, like as far as audio programs are concerned, like I can run old Impulse Tracker software programs that were written for 98. In XP with no problem. And the thing is that like the way that Vista's set up, and this is the positive thing. There's a lot of negative. I'm not dismissing all the negative, but the positive thing about Vista is that it will probably be backwards compatible to an extent. All right, not to a complete extent, but to an extent. All right, and it also has this weird architecture where it's going to be seamlessly updating itself in the background whenever you're connected to the internet.
I don't like that.
That's freaky.
I don't like
it.
That.
It is kind of freaky, but it's also very convenient because you're not going to have to sit there and heal your Windows rig. It'll do it automatically.
But the thing is, if it's working fine as it is right now, the updates can only risk the state of my machine.
That's true.
Yeah, but if you're running Vista, you're probably going to run into problems with the get-go.
Maybe probably going to. To your point about backwards compatibility between 98 and XP, it was seamless.
Yeah,
in my opinion. I mean,
2000 was seamless too.
They did a really good job with that.
Yeah,
but XP wasn't all that different from 98.
It wasn't. It really wasn't.
Or in 2000, like I can't. If someone sat me in front of an XP machine, like that had the classic start menu,
you wouldn't
and a 98 model, I probably wouldn't notice the difference for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what Windows does really well. I mean, like if they because like remember the Mac thing. Just think about like you have to boot in OS 9. Like you can't run any classic programs in OS 10. Like you cannot.
Yeah, that is all. And also Mac, when they went to the G5, all new peripherals. As far as PCI cards, they went to the PCI-X. I don't think that's really happening. But I mean, when we get to 64, I think new peripherals will be 64-bit.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one other comment I have, basically with my personal opinion, I'm not going to upgrade to Vista on my machine. I have a Pentium 4 3.2 gig, and I don't plan on going anywhere with it. I'm totally happy the way it is, and since I've gotten the machine, I've never ran any of the service updates for Windows. I've always kept it the same since my system began to work the way it is.
Me, I've regressed. I went from Service Pack 2 to Service Pack 1 because Service Pack 2 introduced a lot of problems with media drivers.
Yeah. Okay.
See, here's the thing, though. This is the main kind of focal point that I'm trying to make is a lot of musicians like us and recording people like us will stick with their machine the way it is because it's not economically affordable to go, I'm going to go buy a new computer. I'm going to do all these upgrades to it just to get to Vista, just to get minimal feature. You know, it's like you just want your DAW to record the way it's supposed to record. That's what you want.
And that's why I think that many of us may stay exactly where we are now. I will move to Vista, but only when I get a new machine.
Yeah, exactly. You will do it when it's required.
To that, when you were mentioning the specs that is needed to run Vista, it might actually be a good thing that the specs are so high that you need such a strong machine to run that, because 2 years down the line in running Vista, you know, you can really take advantage of all that it...
I've been reading up on some of the advantages that Vista brings, and of course there's the security advantages, but then pretty much everything else is just like GUI. You know, it's graphical stuff, usability stuff. I don't need that as a power user of Windows.
Right.
And this brings up an important point that I have not seen anywhere. I mean, someone probably brought it up, but I haven't seen it. But there is actually a video on Gearwire.com and also an audio interview with Bill Pashik, president of Rain Engineering, Rain Recording Computers, and he you know, he works with the Microsoft guys, like all the bigger companies do,
right?
And he is saying that basically Windows Vista, you guys, Windows x64, that's the architecture for 64-bit computing for Microsoft, and basically. For one reason or another, Microsoft didn't want to push this as hard to its developers. And so people were waiting for Vista to come out before they released their 64-bit drivers. And the thing is that Vista is basically built upon the skeleton of Windows x64 with just a bunch of GUI updates. And it'll take up more space. And I think the answer, according to Bill Pashik, is... you know, Windows x64 for media people, you know, because it's going to be more, it's going to require less resources of your computer. So you can put all of those processing resources towards, you know, processing your media, towards running VSTs. And it supports, I also, another thing, it supports, you know, tons of RAM. And I think they haven't done this on a personal machine, but like in their labs, he mentions they have like 128 terabytes of RAM running on like one of their, you know, like WID-cooled machines. You know,
holy crap!
Yeah, I really wonder what the market share for like what the market share of recording kind of based applications for computers are right now, because a lot of it sounds like, you know, this is a brilliant idea. Hey, have a media based, you know, version of Windows for all the people who do video.
That's what they're saying. That's what Bill Pashik is saying with x64. I mean, it's not necessarily what x64 is supposed to be, but that's ended up the role it's playing. Okay. Because it's basically a bare bones version of Vista.
Yeah. And before we move on, I wanted to, you mentioned how Windows Vista is basically a GUI update. And not entirely, but that's one of the main selling points.
In essence, you know, that's you could say that, you know, you classify it as a GUI update.
I'm running XP at home, and if you looked at my machine, you would think it's Vista. I have a bunch of skin updates. I've got a Mac dock at the bottom, and I can scroll through my apps just like that.
I've heard about that.
And it's not taking like a significant toll on my processor at all to run this, and my PC looks sweet.
But I think you might have some performance and you know, heightening if you were to get rid of those stuff. You might find that you could, you know, render quicker or run more VSTs. But you're running Pro Tools anyway.
I'm running Pro Tools, and I've not had a single problem. Yeah, it's been fun.
I mean, at least they're not changing their whole language architecture like the OS 9 to OS 10 sort of thing.
Yeah, with like AU.
So basically, the whole problem with OS 9 to OS 10 is that they changed the whole architecture.
The skeleton, if you will.
The skeleton. From Unix, from their previous to Unix or an OpenBSD sort of thing, and this is nothing new. I mean, evidently there's, you know, HP has developed the same Unix-like platforms. They're not classically Unix, but you know they're
it's sort of like calling Italian and Spanish like romantic languages as to calling BSD and what is AIX is another one.
That's a very good analogy.
Unix,
So I mean, like that change though really, I mean, it offered for a lot of stability advantages, but during the transition of it was a huge problem, especially with the audio units drivers, the way that they did audio. They got rid of the open OMF, you know, the little MIDI driver implementation because of all this changes in the Unix system. So.
Next up, we'll take a look at the Yugo audio plugins, the Ironhead percussion synthesizer, and Tunguska, a morphing multi-effect plug that comes along with Ironhead. Let's take a look.
So this is Ironhead from Yugo. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. But anyway, it's a drum synthesizer. And basically, you have all these different types of sounds, and he classifies it thud, sort of the kick, whack as sort of your snare. There's thud. I'm going to turn off the delay really quick. Okay, so when you hit that one note, you can see it's triggering this note. That's thud 1. You can control the volume of that. There's also delay send. You can control that. You can control pan. There's multiple outputs on this. We're just going to have it go to output 1. And so over here we have these little XY pads. For the thud, you have tone, noise, and envelope. So if I start moving around the tone knob, actually, we're on tone A. All right. So we can hear the kick change in tone. We can change the noise.
It sounds like it's changing the pitch a little bit, too.
Yeah, the tone will... I think there's just a standard sound in there. This is sort of like a filter.
Just one standard oscillator.
So it seems like up and down on this pad changes the pitch.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I hear that.
Left and right.
Filter.
It sounds like it could be a filter. But noise, of course, gives you more thwack and also does pitch. Pretty cool. And then envelope, if you want to keep on hitting that, you can make it, you hitting that thud still. You can make it like a long envelope,
nice.
Real short. And it's also, you can kind of make it like sort of swell in. So basically you get a lot of different sounds. And then there's also, this is pretty cool. There's a B sound for every sound. So you can have your setup for A. So here's our setup for A, and then we can also have a B sound. And I'm going to switch it to B. So we can have a completely different kick sound. And then what we can do is, you can see this morph button. And you can turn it on and off. And you control morph with an LFO in this section over here. And this is a tempo synced morph. So what I'm going to do is turn the LFO on. And nice. You can hear it sort of changing. And you can change the speed. Or you can slow it down, of course. And you can change the waveform as well. Right now it's just going up and down. Now we got like a triangle. There's different ramps. There's also a sample and hold. If we turn the speed up, we'll see that more. So you can kind of hear that. Let's mess with the snare sound. Can you just start hitting that snare sound? All right. So I'm gonna mess with this one. This one only has tone and envelope. I'm gonna pitch it down a bit. And now I'm going to go to the B sound. All right, so
look out, Pharrell. We're coming for you now with these drum beats.
So that's a completely different sound. And now I'm going to just let it... Just hit the snare, just alone. So now it's just basically changing the sound, like, you know, as it goes. I'm going to turn on the delay, give it some delay. So it's kind of a cool little drum synth. So what I'm going to do now is actually take that MIDI file from last week that you made, that we made after, you know, quantizing and all that. So I'm going to take this, your hair metal thing. Actually, let's listen to what it sounded like before.
Oh, dear.
So that's what we had there. And I'll just bring it down to Ironhead. And we'll listen to what it sounds like there. Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is open it up and open up another preset.
Let's that ride.
Try this hyper preset.
That ride is spooky.
Yeah. Try a few different presets. It's called hyper jab. Ugh. Let's see if we can find that sound.
If we had something without a ride, it'd be better.
It's clang. Okay, so I'm going to change this clang sound. That's better. And turn down the volume. Put some delay on it. All right, so
I like the little tom fill in there.
Everyone loves that tom fill. So what I'm going to do is just grab it and loop it, and we'll check out Tunguska really quick. Both Ironhead and Tunguska come together as it's just like $20 off the Ugo site, and we'll put the URL up. And this is just sort of, there's a filter and a grain, like a granulizer effect. So let's hear what this does to the drum sound after we loop it. All right. So adding some crazy grain effects here. So there's like an XY control for grain, XY control for filter. And again, we have this morph option. So we can see this is, we see this LFO going between sound A and sound B. And we can actually look at where our sound B is. Turn morph on and off for either grain or filter. So now it's all morphing. We can turn up the speed of the LFO. So that's one preset. We got a bunch of others. That's called Squishy.
Anybody remember GMR tools from Pro Tools? You know what I'm talking about? Where they had that morph setting on all their stuff. They have like a little bottom thing where you can actually set a time to morph things. So it's not like just like morph, done. It's like morph it and it'll slowly mix it and swell it into the other preset. It's pretty cool.
Well, I think that's kind of what this is doing. I just want to, we'll move on really quick, but I just want to hear what it sounds like on regular drums. All right. So I'm going to take this plugin and put it on some regular sounding drums, some acoustic sample drums, and see what it does. So it's kind of a way to space out, your regular drums. And if we wanted to, we could double this tempo and totally get like a total hip hop. So it'd be 260 tempo. And
more like a pump.
I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool synth.
Yeah. Fun. Nice. That's ugoaudio.com. ugoaudio.com. Check those guys out. So last, it's time to mix some hair metal. Each member of the Crosstalk crew died a little inside last week while recording a hair metal bump for the Gearwire videos.
Ain't no joke, man.
But it was all in good fun, and we're here to finish it up live on the air in a good old mixing session.
Okay. All right, so we're going to be using the Blue Cats Dynamics. Have you guys seen this stuff at all?
No.
These Dynamics plugins?
I've seen it. I haven't heard it.
Yeah, these are actually pretty cool. I was messing with these. This is basically just a side chainable compressor, and you can see the compression curve that I've already set up on our drums. And so basically what I've done is I've routed our drums to a bus and then put the processor on there. And what I'll do is I'll bypass the effect as soon as I loop it, and we'll hear it dry first. And you guys just tell me what you think of the sound quality. And we're going to solo that. Okay. So that's our this is bypassed. And I'm going to turn it on. It's sort of subtle right now, but you guys hear how it bumps it up? So if we look at this plugin, we got a sidechain filter. So what I'll do is I'll lower the threshold of the compression curve so it's a little more obvious. And what I want to do now with this sidechain compression is make it so it's just going off the kick. It's just compressing off the kick. So I turn on the listen, and now we're just going to be listening to what we're filtering out and what's going to be feeding the compressor.
That's sweet.
Yep.
All right. So turn that off. So now we can hear that it is still compressing. This is clean, and this is
you can kind of hear the modulation a little bit.
You can. What we can do to prevent that here we got a mode.
Yeah.
You can change it to VCA mode. Kind of makes it a little more transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. It's got a stereo spreader, so you can flip your stereo image. This one's called
right
Max.
there, right there.
You can hear it. You can hear it loop every single time. It modulates the same place.
Yeah. Minimum sort of squeezes down your stereo image. Average, I think, keeps it it spreads it out a little bit, perhaps. I'm not exactly sure. There's also an oversampling knob. Right now, it's 2 stages of oversampling. And what this does is it affects the filter, mostly, I think, the sound of the filter.
These seem like very in-depth plugins, but nice at the same time.
Yeah, and they're not too expensive. So
How are they on processing?
right now, I got like 42%. I got a filter on, I got a sidechain filter on, and I'm doing some pretty heavy compression.
Right.
That's good.
But let's take a listen.
Better than that Roger Nichols stuff.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the high cut filter. So here's completely open. It's at 22 hertz.
Okay.
So here's closed, and we're oversampling. And if I needed a little bit of, a little bit more space on the CPU, I'll turn down the oversampling. But listen to what it does to the sound, especially when the filter's on. Did you hear that at all? Here, I'm going to switch back and forth. There's 0. There's 2. Mostly the cymbals. I'm going to turn the sidechain filter off for now. And just turn up the gain a little bit so we can hear it.
Yeah, it opens it up a little bit.
Yeah. It actually, basically all that does is it creates the frequency, it allows the frequencies above, the sampling rate to go through.
Yeah.
It's very subtle, but it is a nice option to have.
It's very useful when you really need those harmonics.
Yeah.
Like if you were doing guitar, it would be extremely important. Like the cymbals got a little more life with it.
Over here in the mode section, you can switch between VCA and Opto. VCA is a little more like your 80s sound, what you're going to find on like a SSL board.
Or Neve.
Yeah. Opto is like Opto circuit, add some more distortion.
It's like your Joe Equalizer.
Yeah. And then over here you got peak and RMS. I believe this is sort of just like the response time. It'll respond to the peak, whether the sensor circuit is looking at the peaks or the average loudness. If we turn this up, it's going to become a little slower and a bit heavier of a compressor. I kind of like that for this sound. I got to turn down the post gain though. And over here, here is actually our controls for our dynamics. This has a gate or expander, as you can see. As I turn up the threshold for the lower curve, we can actually gate out some of that stuff. If I turn the ratio down, it'll do expansion instead of gating, and there's also an E control. But we don't need that in this case. Over here, we have an upper curve control. That's basically the compression. We have our threshold, ratio, so we can actually do reverse compression, or that's actually expansion as well, in a sense. But we're going to leave it about there, and our knee control, so we can kind of round off the curve. Now we're constantly compressing, basically, but to a lesser degree.
What's the price tag running at?
On this thing, I think the entire bundle sells for about $50.
Huh.
Yeah, that's a really good deal.
That is a good deal.
And
Wow.
Yeah, there's a few. I believe this is the only one. This is just $50 right here.
Okay.
One other thing, a couple other things on here. If we do some really heavy compression, just like completely slam it. And I'll turn the ratio up more and turn the knee down. So that this is totally slammed, like all the time. You can hear that. You can mix between wet and dry.
That's good.
Oh, that's cool.
That's good.
So now we have that compressed sound mixed with the other one. And there's also a limiter. You can switch between a hard and soft limiter. That's harder. That's softer. Basically attack time. And here's the release time. So
That's sweet.
It's pumped
That's
up our
really
drums
cool.
quite a bit.
No, it's good. That's good. I mean, like honestly, for what it is for $50, it sounds awesome.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
like, I was just thinking about it. As much as I hate Roger Nichols, and as much as I hate the way those plugins operate, they do sound good for exorbitant amounts of money. But I'd put my money on that any day.
Okay, so we have our drums sounding all right. Now we're going to go into, we're just going to see how it sounds with the rest of the mix. I'm going to mute your vocals for now.
Please do so.
All right. It seems like the guitars are a little loud.
What?
Seems like the guitars are a little loud. I'll turn this down a little bit. All right, so our guitar tracks are right here.
That's not me.
I'm going to group these guitar tracks and just sort of bring them down. That's bass. I'll leave the solo track up a bit. Cool. All right, so this is bringing back memories of last week.
It's really 80s. I mean, it's really 80s.
This is the mixing process, yeah. Listening over and over again to music you may not necessarily like.
Yeah, no, it's...
Okay, I'm going to solo these guitar tracks.
That's right.
And I'm going to send them to a new guitar bus. To do that, I just choose track properties output and then send those three to guitar. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to EQ all these guitars together.
Interesting.
And to do that, I'm going to go to our Blue Cat. Let's do the stereo parametric EQ. Or actually, the parametric EQ stereo version. All right. So, as you guys can see, this is a standard parametric EQ.
Right.
What I'm going to go ahead and do is turn on each band.
It reminds me a lot of the Waves design of things.
Yeah. This kind of reminds me of the Waves design up here.
Their Q10.
For guitar, I kind of like something around 1,000 hertz, sort of that telephone frequency, maybe a little higher, to get them to kind of cut through. And right now, I should be EQing these in the mix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back the rest of the mix. And I'm just going to EQ until I start to really feel that guitar.
Try to bump a little 4 in.
4K?
Yeah, just a little.
All right, so I'm going to bring a little bit of 4K. Not 4K. 400 hertz or 4K?
Yeah, 400, sorry.
400, okay.
I was like, what?
Same thing.
Let's see how that sounds.
I just want to see it kind of gives it some low end.
Basically, you can see all we're doing is adding some extra mid-end, or just mid-range. I'm going to lower the low shelf, just because we don't really have anything there we want.
Yeah.
And a good thing about being able to turn each band on and off is you can listen to what we're doing. So you really don't hear much of a difference. Yeah. But since we're getting rid of that, it's good. If I were to go up higher, we'd start to hear that. We could listen to just what we're doing with that one, with that particular band. So I'm going to turn it back down to around 143. Make sure that we're not cutting out anything we want. All right, that's good.
Now the bass is going to take that place.
Yeah, that's where the bass lives. Let's try moving up some of these highs. Nope, we don't like that. There's plenty of high end in that guitar. Let's try taking out a little bit and moving up our shelf. Maybe, let's hear what that does. Makes it a little smoother, I think. And just bump up the gain just a little bit. And maybe a little more of that 400 to get those rhythm guitars standing out.
Try to move the 1K to like 1.5.
1.5? No, the 1K is actually at 1.6.
All right.
Do you want to move it up some more?
Just a little.
Let's try 2K.
Yeah. It's not really noticeable. I mean, it's...
Well, I mean, you can hear what it's doing. It's obviously doing something, and I think we like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've cued the guitars using that one. We'll bring it down a little bit here. Okay, cool. And what else we're gonna do? Let's add some of this MSEQ to the drums. And what this MSEQ does is called the widening parametric EQ. It looks a lot like the other EQ,
but it's got more.
Yeah,
nice.
It's got two channels, but the channels are not traditionally like left and right. The top one is your middle channel. The top one, and the bottom one is your side channel.
Oh,
so if we press play, we can sort of affect what's in the middle. So let's say we want to on our toms, which are pan stereo, what we want to do is add like 100 hertz so that they start to ring out. And on those fills, instead of being like boom, 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 they'll be like boom, 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 boom. That's kind of what we want. So what I'm going to do is just bump up 100 hertz on the side channels. And you can hear that's really not doing anything, or actually I had to turn it on. It's really not doing anything to our kick or snare. Can you hear that? Can you hear that?
It's not. Yeah, it's creating some accentuation, but
doing
it's very minimal.
But it's very minimal. But it gets our toms, which I think is cool.
That's a very cool plugin, right? Just right there.
And our mid band, our middle section, what I'm going to do is turn up some 80 hertz because that's right where our kick is, and it's really not going to do too much to our toms. I got to turn it on. That's one thing about this plugin. You got to turn on a band before it starts to work. Turn up the bandwidth. Actually, that's affecting the bass too.
Yeah.
Because I have the bass on this too. So what I'm going to do is actually put the bass on its own bus. To a new stereo bus. All right. So now I'll be able to bring out the kick drum. You can already hear that's happening. That's off. That's on. Turn it up some more.
There you go.
Yep.
Get that beater head.
And let's say I just want to add some 5K to the snare. I mean, I could go in and do this individually.
Yeah.
By rendering out each drum by itself, but why would I do that? Because it takes too much time. So I'm going to turn on band 5 in the middle band, and that's actually a little too much on those toms. So I'm going to turn that down a little bit. And on our mid band, I'm going to go up to about 5K. And it's really not affecting our ride too much. It's affecting it a little bit, but minimally. And it's really bringing out that kick. Snare? Not the kick, the snare.
Yeah.
Turn it off for a second?
Yeah.
I'll turn off the band.
Yeah.
You're losing some of the bass on that snare that I think really kind of adds to it.
See, if I start adding like the part of the snare I want to add, you're like 400, it'll start bringing up the kick drum too.
Oh.
And then you'll cover up the bass guitar.
That's true.
All right, cool. What else am I gonna do? Well, let's go back to our bass and put a little compression on there. Oh, that's your vocals.
Yeah, let's please just not ever talk about that ever again. It's like going.
It's going to be on the end of every one of our videos.
So I'm going to go to the monophonic dynamics.
Well, they can deal with it. I don't want to deal with it.
And I'm just going to grab a preset here, bass boost. Maybe raise the threshold a little bit, turn off the auto gain. Because what auto gain does is whenever you turn down the threshold, it gives you makeup gain.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that myself, but it can help, if you want to do something really quick. So that sounds all right for our bass guitar. Sounds good enough. As it sits in our mix, maybe give it a little more volume. I'd probably EQ that if we had more time. Anyway, I think our keyboard sounds all right.
I'd drop the volume just a touch.
On the keyboard or on the bass?
On the keyboard.
Because you played it?
No, I just I don't feel it entirely fits with the rest of the track.
All right,
but it might be good just to
I would probably actually
boost the mix.
I would probably change
the patch.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Or change the effect entirely.
Go for that Oberheim like Van Halen sound.
Well, what I'll do is I'll bring out one of my standards that I always go to, and this is the Dream Station. It comes with Sonar. Most versions of Cakewalk software. What we'll do is we'll find a pad.
Jump.
That's all Oberheim. That's all the Oberheim
pad
stuff, man.
You want to click on click some keys?
Sure.
Is that what we're looking for?
No.
Pretty close. Similar.
Getting closer.
More patty,
see.
right? Kinda.
Yeah, more patty. Like strings. There.
Close.
We'll
Yeah,
we'll
that
raise
might-
we'll raise the filter on this, or add some FM modulation.
That's pretty close. It's better than I think what was there.
It works.
Let's give it a
do
try.
Let's
Let's hear it with everything else.
So we'll just reroute the MIDI track from the Cheese Machine, which we had before, to the Dream Station, and see how that sounds. we'll mix it down.
Yeah, mix it down.
It's definitely closer.
Yeah, it's a bit closer.
Yeah.
Mix it down a little more. All right. So
I guess I totally lucked out because I didn't actually have to play anything. I
Right.
just sit there and mess around with the pod.
yeah, I think we got a pretty good mix there.
Yeah.
So what we'll do?
What about the
is-
vocals?
Well, we'll deal with the vocals later.
Yeah,
Okay.
away from. We don't want to subject you to that right now. We'll subject you later,
What I would probably do with the vocals is compress them, EQ them a bit, and put some reverb on them.
and maybe
Yeah.
mute them.
And well, then what I'll do is I'll edit it out and edit out certain parts and just kind of space it out within there. But that we don't want to get into too much editing right now. We're talking about mixing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Agreed.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening and watching. We will be back in a couple of weeks. We're going to take a break next week, but thanks everybody for listening in, and thank you guys for, as always, taking part.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.